look at this.
Oh, well, that's some innocent people who, after a long struggle, have proved their innocence. Postmasters. There's someone who's not innocent. That's the former chief executive, Paula Fennell. She's guilty. There she is, humping mailbags. That'll be her next profession. Sewing them. So it's a fantastic result. 39 people, one of the biggest miscarriages of justice this country's ever seen, have cleared their reputations. And they were locked up and their lives were ruined and their reputations were destroyed because the post office said, you're stealing at the end of the day from your machines. And they weren't. It was a classic. The computer had got it wrong. It was a faulty IT system. And for nearly 10 years, the post office continued to say, no, the computer says, yes, you're guilty. I mean, you know, it was that feeble.
And also people were told that they were the only people who had done this.
Yeah.
They weren't told that there was dozens or hundreds of other people.
And you thought somebody in the post office might have said, how is it that a disproportionate amount of dishonest people come and work for the post office? Because the company, the post office chief execs, were the only ones that knew how many there were. And you say 39, but there are a lot more cases still to come.
Yes, no. I mean, it was 39 acquittals.
Yeah.
But the case action was about 500.
Yeah.
But you should take a balance, because
500.
Private Eye was the magazine for the last 10 years that's been pushing this story, haven't you? Been investigating it.
We have banged on about it quite a lot. But, you know, Computer Weekly started it off, and there was a good BBC programme called Inside Out South, which you should take about.
Yeah.
So, and some brilliant, obviously, postmasters themselves saying, I don't think I should have been locked up. And why did no one believe us for this amount of time? This is useless government IT. The same firm, Fujitsu, did the NHS IT system, which lost £12 billion and had to be scrapped because it was entirely useless.
Did they do the Nando's app? Because that's terrible. Nightmare. Every time I go for lemon and herb, it gives me like extra spicy. I'm too delicate for it.
It doesn't arrest you afterwards, does it?
It probably gets close.
Yes, the Public Accounts Committee described their handling of the NHS patients' details as the worst contracting fiasco in the history of the public sector. That was before Test and Trace. Fujitsu, obviously, is the company. Horizon was the system.
Yeah.
When did Fujitsu become aware that the Horizon system they had developed was faulty?
10 years ago?
According to Computer Weekly, a senior software developer who worked at Fujitsu alleged that the system should never have been launched and that bosses at Fujitsu knew this. Everybody in the building, by the time I got there in 2001, knew it was a bag of shit. It had gone through the test labs, God knows how many times, and the testers were raising bugs by the thousand. Paula Venables, there she is. She'd be quite good in Line of Duty, wouldn't she? Sorry,
Looks like a crypt keeper. She is.
she's the former chief executive of the Post Office. Paula's a very accomplished woman. She's not only an ordained Anglican vicar, she also became a non-executive director at the supermarket chain Morrison's and the furnishings retailer Dunelm, an advisor to the Cabinet Office and chair of Imperial College NHS Trust, as well as overseeing the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British legal history. So well done, Paula. Why is Paula Venables taking all the blame for the Post Office fiasco?
It's her fault, I would say.
She was chief executive. Tim Parker was chairman.
Here he is, Tim Parker.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Was it low clouds that day? What the earth is going on there? Well, we can see where the money's gone, can't we?
It looks as though he's borrowed the judge's wig on his head. He said at this he'd like to apologise for historic failures, by which he was trying to imply things that had happened a long, long time
Before he got there.
Before he got there, but it's just not true. You know, even a couple of years ago, the Post Office was trying to replace the judge who'd found the first lot of people innocent and saying he shouldn't be allowed to try the case anymore.
Why did they do this? I mean, presumably these people aren't evil. But what they did is so sort of incompetent and so dreadful. I mean, why couldn't they at the beginning of this say, look, it's been a terrible mistake? Why couldn't they admit to that?
Partly due to, you know, you're picking up an enormous bonus, but also it's just the basic thing, I think, of just believing in technology.
Yeah.
I know that sounds very, very archaic and stupid, but if you've got people saying, no, it really wasn't us stealing, you could listen to them.
That would be a good punishment, actually, for those execs, wouldn't it? A lifetime of the computer disagreeing with them. They go into the hospital with a broken leg. Sorry, actually, the computer says it's not broken.
In fact, it's better.
Or computer dating, setting them up with people who weren't very suitable. The rest of their lives. Every night.
All this began at the turn of the century. Around that time, the Royal Mail had decided it was going to be called something else. Do you remember that was?
Bastards are us.
Remember, they decided they were going to be called Consignia.
Consignia, that's a sort of mafia post, isn't it? That's not the
Consigliere.
Oh, yes.
As the Royal Mail Chief Executive John Roberts explained, consignia describes the full scope of what the Post Office does in a way that the words post and office cannot. It cost £1 million for that idea. It was ditched only 2 years after, amid general agreement that it was the most unpopular brand in UK marketing history. But let's give credit, as you did earlier, Ian, to Computer Weekly magazine, which led the investigation into the Post Office story. Did you see how they described the predictability of government-backed IT projects ending in failure? It goes something like this. Ambitious project, outsourcing, bloat, disaster, crash, spend, spend, spend.
That's the weekend for me.
So, yes, this is the sub-postmaster scandal and calls for former Post Office Chief Paula Venables to be stripped of her CBE. According to the Mail's brief biography of Paula Venables, until the Post Office catastrophe, her career, largely in retail, had been exemplary. Well, I'm guessing for many years, Harold Shipman was a top-notch GP. There was a solemn atmosphere in court as the judge read out the verdicts of the 39 sub-postmasters. Cashier number 1, not guilty. Cashier number 2, not guilty. Time now for round 2, the swirly picture of news. Fingers on buzzers, teams.